And welcome. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Whole Brain Thinking. I'm always excited when I talk about the human brain. Just to remind you, I'm standing here today behind the camera. That's myself. Just to remind myself who I am. Okay, looking a bit old and cold, but okay, we're getting along. Just to remind you, medical doctor, got 4 degrees at Wits University, medicine and science, and nearly died 2 times. First was 3 gunshots by criminals, my heart stopped, lungs stopped. Second was drowning incident, I nearly drowned in Durban, Mshlanga. Then I had to be rescued by lifeguards. I love to teach, I love the human brain, I love to share knowledge in a simple way, B2B, back to basics. Please follow, subscribe, and share. Stay well, let's get going to Profiles Whole Brain Thinking. Right, let's go to today's episode. Right, whole brain thinking. What is whole brain thinking? Everything we do starts with our brain. The way we think, the way you react to others, the way you make decisions, the way you manage people, the way you bring up your family, it all depends on how you think. So our human brain is such a very powerful organ. It is a sacred organ. And that is why I think it is a tragedy, or it is actually sad, that we are not taught about the human brain when we are in school. I would encourage all educators, especially in South Africa. We are really struggling in this country. I don't know about you, it's only the very elite schools. If you're very wealthy, you go to elite schools and they teach you about the brain. But where I went, the school that I went was a government school. I was not taught about the human brain. We were just taught, go to school every day, sit in a classroom, keep quiet, and the teacher will explain to you what is going on. And if you don't know, then you will get a hiding. Well, in the days, I'm 64 years old. When I grew up, you can see my hair is nice and white. I'm old, born 1959. So at the time when we were growing up, we had a thing called corporal punishment. Today, there's no corporal punishment. In those days, if you don't know your work, you get a hiding. You get a 6 of the best. You had to bend down. You get 6 shots. The girls were caned on the hands. So I don't know about you. In those days, you were either punished if you don't know. No one taught you how to study. No one cared whether you succeeded in class or you didn't succeed in class. It was either if you passed your exams, you were a good student. If you failed your exams, you were a bad student. Then you were caned and you were beaten up. Well, not beaten up, you were caned. And if children made the noise and the teacher was out of the class, then the whole classroom got a caning. Anyways, what is whole brain thinking? I would encourage our educators, our teachers to teach our children to use the human brain. And this we are talking about now, the whole concept of whole brain thinking. I apologize for my hand shaking. And just to remind you, we're talking about how to remove the brain from the cage. Please share this with your children, your grandchildren, your teachers, your educators. Remember, the brain has got 2 sides, the left side and the right side, and the yellow part there is the bridge that we use. And please remember, as what I always said, our human brain is a very, very beautiful organ. It is a sacred organ, a gift from the Creator Supreme. And let's try and understand how to use the brain. Right, next slide. The profiles of whole brain thinking, Paul Broca, Carl Wernicke, these are all experts on the human brain. Carl Wernicke, Dr. Roger Sperry, Professor Marion Diamond. Marion Diamond, she did fabulous work at Berkeley University in California. Then we have Professor Makato Shikida and Dr. Kobus Neethling. Dr. Kobus Neethling, our very own from South Africa. Next slide. Dr. Roger Sperry, a 1980 Nobel Prize laureate in right brain, left brain studies, famous in the history books for his split brain experiments. What he did was he cut the brain of cats, rats, and other mammals, and he wanted to see what happens if I cut that bridge. The bridge that we talked about. Here's the bridge again. So what Roger Sperry did, this yellow part, he cut it. And that's when he cut this brain, he found that the animal then was doing different things. That's how then we found out, okay, there's 2 different sides of the brain. And the left side of the brain has more to do with logic, mathematics, IQ. The right side of the brain has got to do with feelings, with emotional quotient, with social interaction. And because of these studies, we then found out that, okay, there's 2 sides to the brain. So it's an amazing human brain. In fact, there's many more sides to the brain, but just from a behavioral aspect, there are 2 sides to the brain. So there's been many people who've done fabulous experiments, and that's how we came to find out, okay, there's at least 2 sides to the brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. But as I said, I'm keeping everything simple and back to basics. Okay, no talk on the human brain would be complete without the story of Phineas Gage, a very sad story. In 1848, in the United States, in Vermont, a foreman on the railway, while they were busy building the transatlantic railroad between East east coast of America to the west coast of America. There were many Irish people there, many Chinese. In fact, the Chinese actually built the transatlantic railroad in America. But what had happened, Phineas Gage was one of the foremen, and as they were pummeling the spike in the ground, the spike shot up and hit him in the brain. Now, in those days, they didn't have ICU, they didn't have major details or information about the brain. But what happened was the spike went through the forebrain, and that is how we came to understand what is the purpose of the forebrain, or the prefrontal cortex as we know it. And very soon they found that Phineas Gage, fortunately, he survived the accident, but then his personality completely changed. And his best friend said, Phineas Gage is no longer Phineas Gage. And in that we came to find out that the forebrain, the front part of the brain, is involved in our personality and our higher functions, our executive functions, the ability to think, the ability to plan. And the forebrain is also used for making up manufacturing lies or dishonesty. And that is where the Quran says the lying, sinful forelock. It refers to the forebrain, which allows a person to be manipulative, or it gives a person the character and their personality. Right, next slide. So a new and powerful technology for assessing human potential is based on the extensive research on something called brain dominance. That means every human being will have one side of the brain that's more powerful than the other side of the brain. And that is why you have some people who are left-handed, some people who are right-handed. The majority of people are right-handed. Some people are left-handed. What it basically means is that the right part of the brain controls the left side of the body, and the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body. So if you are right-handed, it means that your left side of the brain is more powerful and stronger. That means if you are a right-handed person, that means your left side of the brain is more dominant. That means that your left side of the brain, you are more of a logical person, a rational person, a mathematics and science person. That's mainly if you are a right-sided person. Right, next slide. Dr. Cobus Neethling is a South African. He did research at the University of Georgia in the United States of America under Paul Torrance in 1983. He's a world leader in creative thinking, and I attended many of his workshops, and I've got a qualification in NBI profiling. I've also got a separate qualification from other neuroscientists on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. But Dr. Neethling has formulated his own NBI called the Neethling Brain Instrument, from which he assesses the brain profiles of patients. So he studied under Paul Torrance in 1983, a world leader in creative thinking. And whole brain thinking allows you to use creative thinking to solve problems. So following intensive research among thousands and thousands of participants, the internationally recognized and validated NBPI was developed, the Neethling Brain Profile Instrument. Next slide. The NBI, even though I'm a qualified NBI practitioner, I don't do that anymore because of my spinal disability. But if you do a simple Google search, you will find there are many qualified NBI practitioners. And if you want to do a brain profile, I would highly recommend you do a brain profile for your child or your school student, your pupils. It will help you to choose a career. It helps for career development. Excuse me. It is a very simple test. There's about 30 questions, and there's 4 questions. You got 4 choices under each question. And there's no right or wrong answer. You must just choose what suits you under each of those questions, right? It's not a difficult question. It's not like a mathematics question. It's not an IQ question. It just basically tells you your preferences. You must just think of it as if you're going to a buffet, you're going to a restaurant, there's different types of food. Do you like prawns or do you like chicken? Do you like meat or do you like fruit salad? So it's just a matter of deciding what are your preferences, and this NBI, the brain profile, will then tell you what are your strengths in your brain and what type of career you must go into, or whether you are a right brain person, a left brain person. Basically gives you 4 quadrants. So the NBI gives your brain into 4 different quadrants, and the more advanced NBI divides the brain into 8 quadrants. So NBI is a revolutionary new tool that is used internationally and earned Dr. Cobus Neethling, our very own Cobus Neethling from South Africa, the prestigious International Distinguished Leadership Award. So the NBI brain profiles have been used in some of the world's most successful organizations to achieve superior business results. By helping people and organizations gain greater insights into how they prefer to think, how they learn, how they communicate. We enable them to harness the power of their thinking for improved productivity, creativity, and fulfillment. So in my human brain workshops, I used to do these brain profiles for all the delegates, and then within a few days' time, we used to give them a color printout of the brain profile with a certificate to show them what is their brain profile, and this would help them in their business, in their career choice, in their school, in their studies. So what is a preference? So we'll stop at that point. Before next session, we'll talk about brain preferences. Stay well, look after yourself. Please share this with your children and grandchildren. Stay well. Alhamdulillah.